This is Charlie Parsons for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. Mr. Steve Bunce.
Yeah, Charlie, how you doing?
I'm very good.
Just watching some people over your shoulder. Just let them move away. They're nicely moving away. That's perfect. Keep your voice down. That's good. Carry on now, Charlie.
How are you?
I'm good. Good. Back in Riyadh. I think this is my ninth fight in Riyadh, or ninth fight week in Riyadh. Pre-Riyadh season and Riyadh season. It's either 9 or 10. It's a lot. I mean, that's a decade of going to Vegas sometimes. Mad.
When did you first come out to Saudi Arabia?
I came out for the AJ against Ruiz.
That was the first time?
Yeah, the second one, yeah. So December, whatever it was, 2019. I came out at a really odd time for Saudi Arabia, because during the previous few months, women had been allowed into restaurants with men. They'd been allowed to drive, and they'd been allowed into cinemas, plus a tourist visa had been introduced. So it was changing part of the brand new world. But what a difference. Imagine he'd come 6 months earlier and women couldn't drive. Imagine coming 6 months earlier and no tourist visa. It used to take months and months, and then you'd get refused. Different place.
Enjoying your time here?
Listen, don't tell anybody, but I love it here. I try to walk 10k a day. I find all of the food incredibly fresh and sensible. I'm a rice and chicken addict. I love salads. I love just the fresh. I love the heat. Even now, it's not hot now, but it's still warm now. Yeah, I like it, and I really like, because I like the 7-8 days of no chance to even have nicked 2 pints.
You know what? I'm very much the same. It's like a bit of a health kick.
Well, if I don't lose about 7 to 8 pounds, 9 pounds when I'm here, I'm a bit disappointed, because see, if these weeks took place anywhere else in the world, anywhere else where alcohol was served, excuse me, you'd invariably nick a pint or 2 at night.
After work?
Not a lot. You wouldn't get paralytic, but you'd have 2 pints. You'd have 3 pints. You might, if you that way inclined, have a cheeky half at lunch. Now, over a 7-8 day period, it builds up. So I find that one of the most reassuring things. Plus, we work a lot of hours here. If you do stuff early in the daytime, and then you're still, we're still putting stuff together, sometimes at 2:20 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. That's just not practical. If you're doing radio at 11 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're still putting the pod together at 2:30 in the morning, you can't find time to go out for a drink there anyway. So it just doesn't work.
Let's talk about Saturday night. Is Bivol Beterbiev 2 the rightful main event?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, and I get what you're saying. I mean, if it's will it be? If you're looking at will it be the best fight? Will it be the most exciting fight? Obviously, it's not for a heavyweight title. Should a heavyweight title be the main event? There's been instances in history where the heavyweight title hasn't been the main event. So there is precedent for. Yeah, I think it should be. Yeah, I think the first fight was a classic, maybe a purist classic, but it was a classic. It was brilliant. Every single second of it, every minute of it, every moment was poised, perfectly balanced and brilliant. So it should be the main event. I think we all know it's not going to be the best fight, but that's understandable.
I suppose also, sorry to butt in.
What was that?
When we say best fight, it's more of a fight for the purists, right?
Yeah. Well, listen. I do a thing when I talk about that fight, Charlie. I like to do a thing where I tell people, watch any part of it and stop your phone or whatever contraption you're watching it, and have a look at their balance. How have they managed to do that? This is the 32nd minute, the 19th minute, the 28th minute, and their feet are perfect, their hands are perfect. You couldn't take a bad picture of it, because everything's so balanced. It was choreographed, it was perfect. And I don't know if I talked to you about this before, but both those two fighters are products of a very old regime, the old Soviet boxing regime. So sure, I appreciate they weren't boxing when the Soviet Union was in charge of all of the territories, but they inherited the coaches who were coaching when there was only one Soviet Union, with Russia at the heart of it, and the 16 other satellite nations around it, all called one United Socialist Soviet Republics. And the coaches that those two worked under when they first entered the Russian system, because that's what it was at that point, those coaches were left over from that regime, and they taught balance, they taught poise, they taught timing, and they taught precision. And they might have taught also slightly boring stuff, in the sense that, you know, it was always, it's the art of self-defense. Yeah, it's the art of self-defense, remember. So they didn't teach having wars. They taught getting hit less than the man you're fighting, therefore winning a system, a point system. Because bear in mind, they are only training people for the amateur business, not for the pro business.
How did you have the first fight?
I had the first fight the way it was scored. With Beterbiev winning, not by a million miles. Had it gone the other way, I wouldn't be screaming. I just thought he did enough. And then I didn't watch it back. I read my notes and then I watched it back. And yeah, I didn't change my opinion reading it. But had it gone the other way, I was pleased it was a cluster as such, tight enough scoring. Eddie Hearn did a great job that night for Bivol, screaming and shouting at ringside. You know, I think Eddie called it one of the biggest robberies he'd ever seen, which is just beautiful. It was great because you got everyone talking. And I came home, and when you had those casual conversations with friends of yours that are boxing, that watch boxing, the first thing they said about that fight was, "Bad, was it a terrible decision then, Steve?" And you say no, and that was Eddie did that. That's what a promoter can do. You can influence the public. And I think they did. I think Bivol's people lodged an official complaint, and which is different than screaming blue murder at ringside. I think it's a really simple thing. I'll whisper it really, that fighters who are involved in fights where they feel they've won, their team need to contact the sanctioning body, an official contact.
Very rarely anything happens.
Yeah, but you've lodged an official complaint, because what the IBF can say is, but you've never even complained. Screaming at someone at ringside is not complaining. That's being a fool. Construct your letter, send it off. Therefore, it's official. And I think his people did. I've seen that somewhere. I've got a copy of that somewhere. I don't know where it's from. Photocopied somewhere. I don't know. Someone sent it to me.
How do you think this fight goes this round?
I think the same way. Same really tight technical fight. I don't think either of them would have aged. They're both an age already. I don't think any of them got old. They've had the birthdays since the fight. I think this will be the same fight. I really do.
Quite nice turnaround time for them as well.
Yeah, it's quite nice. So it's long enough, but it's not too long for any of them to have grown. They don't grow loads. They're old Soviet fighters, but they wouldn't have lost their ways or diverted. And I think what's interesting is that we know that Bivol's legs and frame, you know, they're aging because of the regime he's been involved in for 20, 30 years maybe, for all we know. I know his legs they were troubling him last year, so perhaps his legs are even better now after that fight. Maybe that was part of the rehab, because he's not normal, is he? Anyway, so it's all better. His
training is mental, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his training regime is mental. The guy's a character.
Did you get many words out of him this week?
Oh, listen, you know what? I can't believe it. I made him he told me a great story about his mum. He talked about. I said, "Did you ever do ritual on fight day?" And I expected him just to say no. And he said, "Yes, every fight day." I won't do an accent. He said, "Every fight day, I always call my mother." And I said, I said that's fantastic. I said, are you your mother's favourite? And he went, no, that's my big brother. I said, well, even though you're the champion? He said, yeah, my big brother is still my mum's favourite. So I said, do you want to be your mum's favourite? He said, yeah, I'd love to be my mum's favourite, but my big brother will always be my mum's favourite. And I was thinking, this guy's going on. I
believe we've got that out of.
And his team were looking. Then he made a sort of joke at the end. Then he said, I'm learning. One day I will be good. One day I'll be a good son. One day I'll be a good boxer. And his team are laughing and he's laughing. And I'm sitting there going, wow, this is the longest and the most off track Artur Beterbiev has ever gone.
I think that's sometimes the best way to do it, by getting him a little bit off track.
Oh, I'm not going to ask you what have you learned, because I've already done it twice in the build-up since that fight. So no, I find him I think he's a funny guy. I think he's got a good sense of humour. We've got quite a few fighters on this bill who've got a quirky sense of humour. I mean, Zhilei Zhang's obviously got a quirky sense of humour.
Swearing
with his
every
big,
second.
yeah. He's got some. I mean, and I love the idea that he's making out he has no idea what he's doing. So I like his sense of humour. Obviously, Usyk, in a greater sense, in a grander scheme, he's got a great sense of humour. But I think Beterbiev might have a really good sense of humour. Some people might say you're joking, but he laughed. We did about 5 minutes. He was great in the end.
Let's talk about the co-main event, which is mad that we're even saying that, because it is a fight that could headline probably anywhere in the world. Daniel Dubois against Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
Now, Andy Lee, I'm sure you would have caught up with him at some point this week, or pending to. Joseph Parker, they are so bang up for this. There isn't an element of doubt within their mind. They're so confident that they win come Saturday night. Eddie Hearn has also picked Joseph Parker to win, you'll never get too much from Daniel. I think he's starting to enjoy his media rounds a little bit more and playing around a little bit more, but we know what we get with Daniel. What do you expect?
I expect several different types of fights, really, and I'm thinking that in the very first round you'll have a suggestion or a sort of a clearer view of how it's going to go. So, for instance, in the fight with Joshua, Daniel came out and dominated from the very first bell, which he'd said he would do. But saying what you're going to do and doing it are two different things. And he did it. And it was like the only person that didn't know he was going to do it was Anthony Joshua. So Anthony went back in nice straight lines, allowing Daniel to hit him with a big, stiff, straight jab going forward. Because if you go off to the left and the right, and you're going forward, you can't hit them with a jab. You physically can't do it because it's not a jab anymore. Suddenly it's over here or it's over there. Either way, you're losing your traction, you're losing your balance if you go out to the left. So all you've got to do is move off, and AJ didn't move off. He backed off in straight lines, tram lines, and he allowed Daniel Dubois to go big jab, pulls, big right hand. Worked so perfectly from the very first bell. It was a flawless, sensible tactic by Daniel. Does that work against Parker? No chance. There's no chance that works against Parker. Parker can move his shoulders, he can move his hip, he can block shots, he can go off left, he can go off right, he can go backwards, and he can counter better than Joshua. Is his chin better than Joshua? Probably. Joshua's chin is better than people think it is. He just gets clumped around the ears and on the top of the head. Seldom ever gets hit on the chin, for God's sake. It's always somewhere like the Ruiz shot, top of the temple, that type of stuff. So I think in the first round we'll have a really clear idea. Then after a couple of rounds we'll have a really clear idea. Because then we've got to see Daniel thinking a little bit more. Unless, of course, he's genuinely manhandled and roughed up Joseph Parker. There's just something about Joseph Parker at the moment, Charlie. There's something about the two wins. The Wilder win was clear as day, but it was unbelievably hard. I've never known a man basically win a shutout and be as exhausted and mentally and physically drained as Joseph Parker was that night. You win a shutout, you're not meant to look and feel and sound like Joseph Parker did. That's because to beat someone like Wilder, every second of that fight is about concentration, and that's exhausting. And that's, I think, it's more that fight, it's that level of concentration that I think will help Parker in this fight, because he won't be sloppy. And I think, Frank Warren's quite convinced that Parker will have a go, and if he has a go, that will be the problem. He'll have a go, but he won't set his feet, thump his chest and have a go. I mean, he had a go against Wilder because him and Andy Lee devised the style where they would punch with Wilder, which was bold and dangerous. But when you actually look at it, it was brilliant. And it's actually not that dangerous because Wilder needs to pull his shoulder back, lean it up, and then launch it. And during that time, Parker was looking for tells and signs, and he would land quite comfortably. In fact, he never found himself in danger from that tactic. He got clipped a couple of other times by wilder shots. So if it's the same thing happens here with Daniel, if Parker starts to measure Daniel, if Parker starts to relax against Daniel, and Daniel's getting a bit frustrated because he can't just biff and bash him, then it gets an interesting fight. Equally, if Daniel, who I've known some confident people going into fights in my time and a calm around them. Daniel would be in that top 3 of people that genuinely believes he cannot lose at the moment.
It's like when he was walking to fight AJ, you could just tell from looking at him that there was not like an element of doubt within his mind.
Not even a healthy element of doubt in your mind, because that's, it's a good thing to have that, what Nigel Benn used to call fear. Yeah. In the sense that you need to be aware that the man you're fighting or woman you're fighting can beat you, can hurt you. But Charlie, there wasn't even a sense that, there wasn't even a moment in the build-up to AJ
that he doubted himself.
And there isn't even a moment of doubt in the build-up here.
Is that to do with, and I want to be careful how I phrase this, because I suppose the comments around Daniel are always that he's kind of I don't want to say not all there, but like a little bit nonchalant or whatever. That probably goes in his favour, right?
Excuse me. Daniel focuses on one thing. Now, he can over-focus, so he can fall apart a little bit, which we've seen in a couple of fights where, we've seen in a couple of fights where he's unravelled. And that's what a polite way of putting it. The other way is he's taken a knee. One other thing is he's quit, or he's just decided not to fight. I had no problem with him stopping fighting in both the Joe Joyce fight, where it was clear he was damaged, hurt, and was pointless continuing, even though he was ahead on 2 of the scorecards. And I had no problem at all with him taking a knee like he did in the Usyk fight, because Usyk, how he's warming up, how he works, and he's starting to get nasty. And Usyk is nasty. Don't worry about the dancing and the silly multicoloured pants and his goofy grin and his silly haircuts. Alexander Usyk is a really nasty fighter. He's vicious and nasty. So I had no problem with those 2 results. But it was clear in Daniel's mind, it was clear that Daniel's mind wasn't strong enough in those 2 fights. Nothing wrong with his chin, nothing wrong with his stamina, nothing wrong with his punch power. It was his mind that wasn't strong enough in those 2 fights. Something happened in the Jarrell Big Baby Miller fight. Something happened in the Filip Hrgovic fight, and something happened in the AJ fight, which just filled him with confidence isn't enough, something else. And he's brought all of the things that helped transform him here to Riyadh with him. And he's wandering around it's like some sort of untouchable giant, and that's fantastic. I mean, that's just off the scale. I mean, as far as I'm concerned. But here's the thing: Parker's aware of that. Parker's not gonna sit down with Andy Lee on Saturday morning and go, "Wow, Daniel Dubois really fancies this fight, doesn't he?" Parker knows. They know. They know.
Parker's so relaxed too.
Yeah, and Parker's a different type of relaxed. Parker's had basically, really realistically, Charlie, it's about a 500-day training camp. Between Lockhart and Andy Lee, between New Zealand and between Dublin. They've based, and between training sessions in Riyadh or wherever he's fighting.
Riyadh,
yeah, I mean, they've basically been made a commitment at some point in 2023 to transform all of their lives. Lockhart attached himself to them, and he's very honest. Lockhart, he tells you that he's really expensive. He is expensive. George Lockhart doesn't work for peanuts. George Lockhart would rather not work than work for peanuts, and so it's costing Joseph a lot of money. It's a massive investment. So whatever, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 month investment to become world heavyweight champion again. And their quiet calm is staggering. Just like Daniel's quiet calm is staggering. And none of it is bravado. I don't believe Daniel's saying anything to convince himself that he's going to win. He genuinely means it.
Are you allowed to give me your gut feeling for that one?
No, not really, because I want to see it. I'm still, one of them could still implode. We're recording this at Thursday afternoon or whatever, 3 o'clock. We've still got the press conference, which will be, I'm assuming, will be fairly tasty. Then we've got the weigh-in. Then we've got the day of the fight. And there's still an awful lot of things that can happen. Yeah, and I always talk, and I think I might have talked to you about it, I always talk about being able to change your opinion even on the day.
Back and forth for a
absolutely.
week.
There's no problem, you know. And there's some big fights where I've changed my opinion on the day. I've also changed my opinion once when I saw a fighter who remained nameless come into the tunnel, and it was just below me. It was during Satanta Day, so going back about 2009, big fight, sellout of the O2, big sellout, and he was about 6 feet away from me down there, and I was watching him from my position. I was just looking down at him, and I turned to the guy I was working with and said, all bets are off, it's going to be the other way, something's wrong with him. To this day we don't know really what was wrong with him, but he lost the fight somewhere between about Wednesday and Thursday, and when he was standing there at 11 p.m. on a Saturday, completely lost. He got smashed to bits in 2 rounds, or 3 rounds.
Steve, I could sit here all day with you, but I won't do that, and I'm sure you don't want to do that. What we'll do is we'll quickly reel off another couple of things from the card, and then I will just ask you your current thoughts on whole AJ Fury saga.
Yep.
Just, have you ever seen anything like this Floyd Schofield and Shakur Stevenson thing? Bit weird.
Yeah, it's a strange old turnout. Without being, you know, trying to be a smart bum, Darren Barker and I talked on Monday on the BBC pod and said we just didn't think Schofield was going to fight. I didn't like the look in his eyes. I didn't like.
Was that after speaking to him?
It was, yeah. It was after speaking to him, and his dad was in the, you know, his dad was there, and there were a lot of things I didn't like about it. There were so many things I didn't like about it, Charlie. I didn't like the look in his face, and I didn't like the idea that, oh, he's in great nick, he's okay. No. Anyone can get six-pack. I mean, did he look big for the weight? That was what Barker said, and Barker was absolutely right. Barker thinks he was heavy, which I believe he was too. But no, I've never known anything like it. And it's got legs. We've got to be a little bit careful what we say, because there's been a lot of accusations being thrown around.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on.
Yeah, you've got to be a little bit careful.
Slash passports being...
Yeah, someone touching someone's arm as they passed out of an elevator or something.
Shakur doesn't even have a massage therapist.
Yeah, it's lovely. But the thing is, if you know how social media works better than I do. If you say it, it's true. So if someone says something, especially when you're desperate to hear it, and this is the situation with Floyd's father, everyone was desperate to hear his opinion. So if his first opinion is, you know, someone managed to rub some poison on my son's arm, I mean, this is great stuff, but you know, I'll let you in a secret, Charlie. We're not that sophisticated in our business, son. You know what I'm saying? It ain't the Cold War. It's not Berlin, 1969.
Definitely ain't doing it here.
No, I mean, you just got to love it. It's like someone putting a hex on someone, you know?
Smith Boatty would headline any, well, I say any, probably do a good arena in Manchester, Liverpool or London.
Shoot, I think Boatty's quietly got a lot of fans in his own way for a man that doesn't go around singing his own praises. Yeah, Boatty's popular enough. Callum, yeah, I mean, they might have had to, if they'd have put it in Liverpool, they might have had to have called it something like The Last Dance or something like that to add to it, to remind people of Callum's status and where he is. I think it's a really great fight, and you know, I like to read fighters in Fight Week, and Callum was quite hard to read, because I was expecting to see a slightly older looking Callum. I was expecting to see Callum a little bit distracted. No, the Callum that sat down with me on a couple of days ago was unbelievably focused, clear-eyed, bright-eyed, Charlie, bright-eyed, and you know, that's a sign. And you know, talking to everyone around him, they are going to say he's in. You know, he knows this is a big fight. He's in great shape. But then you look at him and you talk to him and you think, yeah, you're about as balanced and calm and focused as I've ever seen you. So that was not a shock, but it was reassuring to see. And Boatty's just Boatty. You know, Boatty is unbelievably fresh. I know that people saying, well, it's been 2 Olympic cycles since he won his medals. He should have got a world title by now. Well, yeah, that's a valid argument and a valid thing. But he's had COVID in the middle of that. He's had change in his promotional outfit in the middle of that. He's got the massive transatlantic crossings that he has to do to train in the middle of that. And the word he uses is in no rush. I mean, he doesn't want to leave it much longer. I mean, he's still only a baby. Now, what, 31 or something now, for God's sake. So I'm a massive Buatsi fan, and I think Callum Smith's been unbelievable for British boxing. And when you look at his record, he's been in some great nights and given us some great fights. I think it's a brilliant fight.
Jean Caballel?
Oh, big bang!
I think Caballel is very underrated.
Oh man, I'm genuinely, unofficially the chairman of the Caballel fan club. When he beat Makhmoudov, and I fancied he would because he's just too clever. And Makhmoudov's a big bully, and a fun big bully, but a big bully, and that was brilliant that night. And then he had to dig deep again against Frankie Sanchez. He was thrown in twice, Caballel, to lose.
As an underdog, yeah.
But he's being thrown as an underdog, and he's been thrown in as fodder. And I believe he was thrown in as to be a victim on both occasions. I really do. He took the fights for the right reason, money and a bit of status. And I think the same thing's happening with Zhang. I think he's been thrown in with big bang to lose. In all fairness, Daniel Dubois, 3 fights where he was meant to lose. Jarrell Miller, no problem if he lost. Hrgovic, no problem if he lost. AJ, no problem if he lost. He was. I'd classify him as the slight underdog in all 3 of those at that particular time where Daniel was in his head. Came through the 3. I think Caballel's capable of pulling off a 3 as well.
Cool. Well, I know we said we go through the rest of them, but I don't want to take all your time up, so I do want to move very quickly. Is Tyson Fury really retired? We know that off the back of putting that post up. I think he was probably a little bit annoyed. Obviously, everything had been on at the ring. Alexander Usyk getting Fighter of the Year, and Anthony Joshua there doing interviews, calling directly for him, which was a bit unlike AJ. But Steve, I look at it from a more modern standpoint, and I'm sure you would have seen fight over the years that never materialised or whatever. And I know they're not necessarily what they were 4 or 5 years ago, but sitting here now, I would find it an absolute travesty if we never saw Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury contest the ring together.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. My slight problem with it is that it was June the 10th, 2020, when Tyson Fury announced that the fight was on, that he'd spoken to his advisor and that they were going to fight. That's an awful long time ago. And you're right, they're not at their best now. They maybe were at their best then. It would still be a good fight now. However, with Fury, I haven't believed any other retirement he's ever had or talked about going back 7, 8, 9 years. I've never believed a single one of them. This one, and not that I believe it wholeheartedly, but I believe this one more than I believed any of the ones in the past.
Same.
And I think that's because I thought he looked old against Usyk in Usyk 2. It's still a tight enough fight, don't get me wrong. He was still competing. He wasn't wobbling, falling over. He wasn't in any way gun shy. He looked like an old fighter. He just looked a bit old. He looked like he'd lost just a little bit of pace, just a little bit of something. And AJ, it's natural wear and tear. He's slowed down a little bit, maybe getting caught with shots he wasn't getting caught with. So in that sense, what I don't want to see is 2 men who are too far past their prime trying to recapture something that they've lost. And on the route to trying to capture something that they lost, they both end up looking bad in some way, shape or form. So do I want to see it? Absolutely. If it didn't happen, would I be upset? Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Did you think, you were around Tyson that week, did you think that Tyson, if I'd have spoken to you on the Thursday or the Friday before the fight, Charlie, what's your impressions of Tyson Fury this week? What would you have said? You've got to be honest and think back.
I don't quite know, because I remember I'd heard some things within camp. I won't say the fighter regarding, but I definitely remember hearing certain things within the camp. And if I'm honest, I always I've never picked Usyk to lose, let me just say that. Even when he was picked as an underdog against Anthony Joshua,
you still had him to win.
It half broke my heart at the time, but I always kind of picked Alexander Usyk because I know what a fighter he is. I always think it's hard to gauge Tyson Fury a little bit on fight weeks. I know that he came up on the Monday and didn't do much media or whatever. Didn't know if that was because he was more disciplined or whatever, but I kind of expected more of the same a little bit. But he's given so much. Does he need to give any more?
It wasn't about giving. I'm just saying about his state of mind and the way he was, and just those moments when he's waiting to get into the DAZN room, or waiting to get into the TNT room, or and I did the interviews for TNT, waiting to get into this room, or waiting to do that. There's just moments and little bits, and on the Friday broadcast, I said that I don't know what it is, and maybe I'm second guessing myself, but I don't think Tyson Fury is right, and I just didn't think he was right in the fight.
Yeah, he seemed quite irritated.
Yeah, irritated and a bit short, and I don't think he committed in the fight like a man who's trying to salvage his reputation would have committed. And I think that's because there comes a point in a fighter's life when he and she will realise they haven't quite got what they had the last time they were doing what they're doing, i.e. boxing. And I just thought Tyson realised, maybe he didn't realise until the first bell, that this was going to be different. That Usyk was just a bit sharper, just a little bit quicker, just a little bit smarter, and that Tyson just couldn't do the stuff he'd been doing. Now, hey, listen, he could have a good break and it might work. We saw a really good Vladimir Klitschko against, after 2 years, against Anthony Joshua. So it can happen. The break can help.
Who's a favourite right now?
My favourite fighter right now?
Who's a favourite in AJ Fury right now?
That's a good question. Right, if they announced it today and it's going to be in June or July, without seeing them, and again, I'd stick an asterisk by that because I could change my mind. Right now, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you'd choose either one of them as a favourite, because there's, AJ is coming from a shocking loss that in his head he couldn't have ever manufactured, and Fury's coming according to Bunce's reasoning, from a fight where he realised he just has lost a little bit. He's still a good heavyweight, don't get me wrong. He ain't about to get knocked out by a novice. But so right now the two of them are dealing with stuff they've never had to deal with. AJ's lost before, but he's never lost like that. Even the Ruiz fight wasn't like that. He got caught, he got hit, he didn't get manhandled, smashed to bits. So right now, I'm not sure. I think they're both coming off hard losses, and you don't have to get pummeled for it to be a hard loss. And that's part of what Usyk does. He breaks you down, and he just made Tyson aware that stuff that Tyson had done in the past or could do in the past, suddenly couldn't do. He was just a little bit short with his punches, and that made him slightly more reluctant to commit to punches. And that wasn't because he's suddenly become gun shy, it's because he's hit the realisation, perhaps, and I'm sticking in the perhaps there, perhaps I'm not the man I was. Perhaps I'm not the fighter I was. Perhaps at whatever he is, age-wise, after all the years of wear and tear, and especially his wear and tear, perhaps that was it. That's why I think he might just not come back. And of course, people will watch this and go, Bunce, he's going to get 120 million. Yeah, sure. That might bring him back. But then that would fall into my second category, which is I don't want to see two men fighting
for the bag,
for money anyway. Yeah. So I can't lose my prediction.
Steve, you are a legend. Thank you ever so much for your time. It is always a pleasure sitting here and chewing the fat with you. The rare occasion that you do a little interview for us,
tell anyone,
us YouTubers, I won't know. They'll have to see on the subscription file. Just very quickly before I let you go, does the fire still burn like it always has for you? Are you still as in love as you always have been with the sport?
It's ridiculous. I hate parts of it more than I've ever hated parts of it, and I love parts of it more than I've ever loved parts of it. It's really weird. So for me, seeing Joshua Buatsi, and I like Callum Smith, I know him a lot, but seeing Joshua Buatsi, a kid I've known since he was, way before his Olympic stuff, in a fight like this, I like it. Even Daniel Dubois, I saw Daniel Dubois as a junior, and so that I like that, and I also like when I see kids coming through. I mean, Lucas Rohrig, the kid that George Groves has got, the cruiserweight. I saw him win the Haringey Box Cup about 3 years ago. I know a little bit about his history. I think he's 2-0 as a pro now. I shouldn't be getting excited about 2-0 cruiserweights from Shepherd's Bush or whatever when I'm out here working, doing interviews with you and working for the BBC and staying in nice hotels, but I still do. So I'll go out of my way.
So yes, the fire does still burn.
Of course it does. Yeah, flipping out. Yeah, you can't diminish it, man. Listen, there's parts of the business I hate with a passion. You know, I try and go through whole weeks without talking to anybody. I'm only talking to you because I like you.
Steve, you are a fucking legend. Thank you ever so much.